The International Space Station is a hoax. It's faked in the hull of an airplane performing parabolic flight in order to simulate zero gravity. All manned space travel is fake. No one has even been in low Earth orbit. Spacewalks are faked in a float tank. That's why a gallon of water leaked into the guy's spacesuit, and he literally almost drowned in space a few months.
Would you look at that? A bubble in space. Amazing. Tiny bubbles in space.
Float tank. That's
amazing.
Why a gallon of water leaked into
That's really
the guy's
amazing, isn't it?
spacesuit, and he literally almost drowned in space a few months ago.
Bubbles in space. A bubble in space.
Showing the fakery. Recently there was a National Geographic broadcast, supposedly from space, and here's Soledad O'Brien.
Soledad.
She flicks to the people in the International Space Station. Now have a look at their feet. There's stabilization bars, blue stabilization bars. The guy in the blue on the right, he's twisting slightly to the right, and he lifts up his left knee.
Look at him. He looks like a marionette puppet or something.
There's an equal and opposite reaction. So he lifts up his left leg in order to counterbalance the rotation that comes from the uneven movement of the aircraft as it flies through the air. You can't help but experience these small movements. If this was a real spacecraft, there would be absolutely no movement whatsoever. It would be extremely unexpected and unwelcome if it moved in orbit. There are not a whole bunch of jets on the outside of the International Space Station constantly readjusting its orbit. That's not how things in orbit work. You put them in orbit, you get the exact trajectory, and they stay on track. Now, if you have a look at these two guys, they're using these blue stabilization bars constantly in order to steady themselves. Have a look at those feet adjust back and forth, and he's using that blue stabilization bar to try and stay steady. Constantly back and forth movement. Now he starts to rotate slightly. His feet start to move to his right. Right there, and he lifts up his left leg to try and counterbalance the rotation. As he moves away from there, he moves forward. And once again, he hangs on to the bar on the side with his left hand to stabilize himself. This should not be happening in space. Now, this is the same thing sped up. Have a look at the two spheres. One of them is rotating. Through the force of precession, it doesn't move as much. But look at the one on the left. It should be moving in a straight line. Instead, it has this strange curved trajectory. This is not outer space. This is a hoax. And if they're going to fake one thing in outer space, the whole thing is fake. If the International Space Station was really available, they wouldn't go through all this. I mean to do a more in-depth video on this, and I will at some point. You can read more in the video description at my Planetary Vision blog below.
That's pretty neat, huh? How do you guys feel? Oh, this is interesting. I like this one. Is it not peculiar that every known form of energy carries even light, namely with a square of the distance, and yet light rays of stars are still reaching us from supposed billions of light years away? Everything is subject to lines of force, which are curved, as is well known. But only light supposedly travels in a perfectly straight line. Really? Actually, it doesn't. According to French experiments, Professor Elias, after 8 millimeter distance, it is no longer useful as geodesists, surveyors of the Earth, have to use correction factors. That night is never truly dark. Even though light is supposed to travel straight, a glowing mountain can be seen after the sun has long since set. That poles of the Earth, at the great distance of 150 million kilometers from the sun, do not receive equal amounts of heat, though the difference of that distance is only 6,000 kilometers. That's amazing. That we have winter, even though the sun is supposed to be 5 million kilometers closer on December 12th. Well, that's really interesting, isn't it? In all the seasons, we do not have the same temperatures if the sun is a glowing ball of heat. All planets move from east to west. Only the Earth supposedly turns from west to east, which is an opposite direction to all the other planets, all the other paths of the planets. In a centrifuge, all heavy materials collect on the outside, away from the center. Only the lighter ones are near the center. Yet only the rotating Earth reverses the whole process. Earth never cools off completely, although it is traveling in ice-cold minus 273 degrees Celsius space with a supposed velocity of 800 kilometers per second around the Sun. That with this enormous speed in space, high and lows can form in the atmosphere, and everywhere a layer of air with the same altitude can remain. And all this is in addition to the Earth's own revolution of 30 kilometers per second. That on a rotating sphere, the heavy land masses are found in the upper half and lighter water masses on the lower half, instead of a collection of the land masses near the equator. That in the vacuum of space, Earth does not lose its air. A vacuum conducts neither rays nor light, nor heat nor gravity, but this is not valid for the Sun and its planets. Earth performs a revolution against its path around the Sun. The fixed stars do not show a parallax moving from their position, while the Earth races around the Sun at 1.2 billion kilometers per year. That at a solar eclipse, when the Sun is 150 million kilometers distant, the shape of the eclipse is different at various places on the Earth. Yeah, that is kind of interesting, isn't it? It doesn't make sense. That fixed stars never move, although they are found in a moving, expanding universe. That we never see the back of the Sun. Well, I saw the back of the Sun. Although we are moving around it, while the low and high tides happen at exactly the opposite sides of the Earth. The Icelanders at certain times can see Greenland. Interesting. The Icelanders at certain times can see Greenland. Can't happen on a convex ball, guys. But one can see the Alps from the Arbor, and one can see Africa from Sicily. The two plumb lines hanging in a deep mine diverge. They spread apart at the bottom instead of converge. That the velocity of the Earth was already measured in 1906 by two American university professors, and in 1930 by the Zeiss Works in Jena, and that each time the value 0 was found. 0. The velocity of Earth is 0. That already in 1898 the direction of surface curvature of the Earth was scientifically determined and measured without official science making any use of this. That would be the rectilineator experiment by Cyrus Teed and Eugene Morrow in Naples, Florida. Look it up. All the evidence is still there. The Earth curves upward. That television amateurs in England and Holland received programs from Moscow, Peking, and Australia, and those in Austria received programs from the USA and South America. That in radio transmission, a second directional theory can be used, which brings even better results. That's the glass sky for you guys. The glass sky propagates the radio waves. That dust clouds caused by the landing of a satellite or space probe on the moon was 100 times larger than expected. Well, it never landed on the moon, so I don't buy that. That you cannot see any stars from the moon. That the altitudes of mountains of the moon are not correct at all, but showed values of 100 times smaller. That it is not possible to obtain scientific measurement data about the shape and size of the moon. Interesting. That on satellite flights, the horizon is always at eye level. Eye level. The horizon is always at eye level, according to a statement made by a former astronaut to his colleague in trouble. that at the time when Stoltenberg was Minister of Research in Germany and was visited by the astronaut Bormann in Bonn, he said they had seen photos of the Earth from which one could assume that the Earth was a ball. What? That based on satellite flights, one calculated a pear-shaped Earth, while press photos showed a solid ball taken in a flight. Yeah, it's called wide-angle lens. That a news agency reworked the space photos to show a solid Earth. That at an altitude of 200 kilometers, one could photograph the solid Earth when the diameter of the Earth was more than 12,000 kilometers. That with infrared photography one could see the shore of a 24-kilometer-long lake, although one should only be able to see the roof of a boathouse. Yeah, that's the long-distance photographs of New York taken from the Atlantic Highlands. They pointed the infrared telescope up, and they saw the land rising. That the magnetic field of the Earth is supposed to be caused by an iron core at the center of the Earth, although it is known that iron becomes unmagnetic at the Curie point at 750 degrees Celsius. That Copernicus, go back. I finished that. That Copernicus was a lord of a cathedral and not an astronomer, and he definitely stated that his worldview was a theory. It's a bullshit theory, too. That in mathematics, for calculations of unknown magnitudes, one designs mathematical models which can often lead to rather useful solutions, but do not always agree with actual